Welcome and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about you being the ritual. And what does that mean? And what does that mean for a creative to understand this aspect of them as they connect to their creativity and their spirituality? So let's kind of get into what a ritual is. A ritual is when we sanctify and we ordain an ordinary, mundane space and we consecrate that and we have this very strong connection to the divine. And we're moving ordinary life out of the way so that we can have this, whether it's through culture or it's through this solemn act. And it's typically a religious act. However, we can explore what this means when we think about ourselves as a ritual. And so cultures have always used rituals as a way to mark occasions in life, celebrate life, births, unions, to acknowledge the passing of loved ones, to formalize markers in time. And they use this as also a dedication to a higher source. And all of the rituals have this one secret ingredient that's common in all of them, and that is you. That is you when you participate. That is you when you construct into your own type of ritual, when you want to have this conversation, when you want to have this communication and this dialogue where either you're praying or you're asking or speaking to the divine source, and you're also listening to what's coming through. Over the years, I've done many religious rituals, spiritual rituals, and they're wonderful and they enhance the experience and they all work. And they all work because I believe wholeheartedly into what I was doing. And so over time, as I have been developing and studying energetics, esoteric teachings, energy healing, become a practitioner, quantum physics, and just understanding these sort of frequencies and vibrations and waves and how the mind works and what it is that we want to get and connecting that with this knowingness inside, I started to question, are rituals even needed? Can I embody those things? Can I visualize the things that I need and sanctify anything in my life so that I'm in some ways a walking ritual because I have that capacity? And when I'm able to do that in my life, I can then take those experiences and then those become creative expressions down the road. And so what this means is that I'm understanding my co-creator role. And I understand that I bring the life force to the table. I help initiate some of those rituals that I want to do, or whatever that looks like, when I want to bring manifestations, when I want to bring the visions that I have, when I want to bring these inspirations that I have into the world, into the material life, into my hands. And so as I started to really understand this and really hold that energy, that vibration of like that divine spark, and it's that co-creation with the divine where I can now take the most mundane activities and turn them into little rituals. So when I realized that I could walk around being this active ritual, being this active, energetic being, I started to understand that everything I was doing, everything I could infuse could be in this like meditative motion. And it's up to me to choose when I want to bring those moments in or how much I want to expand on that. So understanding that you have within you, if you so desire to believe this or want to try this on, that you have a divine spark inside of you, your soul, your spirit, and you have a connection to the divine. And so when we connect to the divine and we can really see life, we see life and we see the essence of life. We see it in nature, we see it in the way the wind blows through the trees, the way that the birds sing, and we can get into that frequency. And when we start to leave space open to experience that, those pockets and those moments of life that we can reflect on, we can contemplate with, we can have this like deeper meaning and understanding because we've given ourselves that sanctification, that quietness, that time to really commune within. That is what becomes the secret ingredient to the creative work. That's what opens you up and creates that effervescent flow of creative energy that can flow through you. And so what tends to happen is that we know this and we'll get really inspired and then we over index on that energy. We tend to burn it like we've got fuel that's ever flowing and we do, but we have to replenish it. And so what happens is we burn out. We have those passion projects that we want to get working on and we just get too stuck in the logical mind and the practicality and the productivity And then we get stuck in the physicality of it. So we're working harder than we need to. We're working harder just so that we can maybe make a deadline, or we're trying to push something through. And it's this idea that we have to challenge ourselves and push through the grit and the grind. And there's times for that. But when we're talking about this spiritual essence, this creative essence, and I always see them as like these threads that kind of interweave together, because the act of creating is the mimicking of the source of energy. This idea of bringing something from the mind that's invisible, which is pretty much in the dark, and bringing it to light. And so when we start to find ourselves burnt out, I want you to remember that you can be a ritual. I want you to remember, if you so choose, that you have this flame inside of you, this bright light, some little droplet of divine essence sits inside of you. And this has to be nurtured and nourished, which is simply by having a certain type of rest. Going for a walk, taking a nap, these are not quick fixes. These are actually remedies that we want to maintain to stay in the creative flow. So if we're burnt out and we don't have this capacity to replenish, those things aren't going to work as quickly as we'd like. And so this kind of brings us back to this idea that this essence that you have that makes rituals come alive, this idea that however we want to design those rituals, however we want to bring in certain elements that work with us, that help us, that focus us, we're still the key ingredient. And there's something really beautiful about rituals. They enhance the experience. We have meanings and symbology that just amplifies the things that we're trying to create in our life. But you're the key ingredient. And if we put the power, on the ritual itself, or the items, or the symbology, we then just take power away from us, and we start to forget the kind of power that we have. When you understand the kind of essence that you have, the driving force of energy that you have, just in a way where you're literally kind of like you're tethered to the divine. You're tethered to this cosmic source of energy. And take the time to give space to allow that relationship to be nurtured, or think of it as like a creative well, spiritual well. You have a spiritual well that needs to be nurtured. And just like a bank account, you can't keep taking money out of the bank account without putting money in. At a certain point, there's not going to be any resources left in the bank account. And that's the same for our spiritual nature. We need to learn how to feed that. We need to learn how to nurture that and add to it so that we have an abundant flow for that creative force and that creative flow that wants to come through. And so it's this balance that we have to strike, where we can start to expand and create the things that we want to create in our life in every single capacity. This is the idea of romance in your life. This is the idea of bringing beauty into your life. I wanted to take this to the next level. So by saying that you are the ritual, you have everything you need to restore yourself, to ignite your creative spark, to be able to manifest your dreams, to be able to get visions, to be able, if you wanted to get into more psychic realms, to tap into collective energy, purely for the contemplation, to express the beauty of life, to mimic it, to challenge our thinking, to be able to help others process emotions because you went first, in a way in which you use whatever medium you use. It could be writing, it could be art, music. Maybe you build something. Maybe there's some other mediumship that you use, or medium that you use to help communicate this. And so I think it's really important right now that we hone in on, it's not just about creating, it's not just about the act of doing, but the sense of resting, and resting in a way where we're sanctifying space and we're making it holy. We're making it holy. I said it. We're making it holy so that we can get the purest kind of information to come through, the purest essence when we're thinking about creating. It's this essence, and it's this essence that you're going to put into everything that you do. And the goal of a ritual is to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary, to suspend time, to sanctify space, and to allow this pure-hearted fully focused intention on the action that you're doing. Keep the rituals that you have, but understand you are the secret ingredient. And you can do this in any way, shape, or form. Try it out. Really take that idea on that there's this divine spark inside of you that you can see. Give it a vision, give it an image around it so that you can use it as like a quick gateway to get into this space of connecting and tapping in. And if you were to walk around, let's use a candle, a lit candle that's sitting in your belly. And that's the symbol of divine spark, of a divine light. How would you move about your day? How would you get up in the morning? How would you talk to people? How would you engage in everyday activities? What would you put in your body? What would you listen to? You might start to see and observe a different shift in you. Once you start to sanctify your life in a way that everything has meaning, and maybe you already do this, and maybe this is just another fun experiment and exercise, just to see how you internally shift, how you start to handle problems, obstacles, emotions that may have in the past caused you a little ruckus, may not be that way. You may have a different approach to it. And you might start to observe if you hold this energy and you really start to integrate it and embody it, you'll see others respond to it in a different way. There's this sense of we need to really connect back to ourselves and we need to learn how to move through all of the emotions that we go through and be able to walk in a world where we've taken everything that we've learned from generations past and we're utilizing this wisdom without getting burnt out. It's such an important time, I believe, for anyone in the creative arts, anyone creating content, anyone that's in this creator mode, not to burn out, not to overextend yourself, not to take too much on, know the signs, know the symptoms, and know, even more importantly, how to replenish that connection, that inspired, that inspired connection, that inspired channel that we want to be. So whatever your rituals are, whatever it is that you do spiritually, remember that you're the power source because there's a part of the divine within you that you're bringing forth. We have within us this soul, if you believe so. We have a soul within us that has a code and it has its own agenda of what it is that it wants us to do. And so sometimes we get in the way of that. Most of the time we get in the way of that. Sometimes we get in the way of that. And other times when we feel like we're defeated and we finally surrender, we surrender to this path that we're going to walk that's in the unknown that only the soul knows. And a lot of times we try and cut it off. We try and cut corners. We try and find quick cheats around it. We try and set timers for 20 minutes and then hope that we can get everything done really quickly. But that's not the goal. The goal is that we create and we create from this really pure place and from a really pure heart and experience life in a way where we have a deeper connection. Artists are going to go first. Creatives are going to go first in how we start to answer problems, how we start to look at the world and what we want to offer it. And it could be writing that challenges us. It could be music. It could be ways in which helps people get a different perspective or give a voice to people that don't have it. So remember, whatever it is that you do, or if you're trying to find new inspiration, new ways to like get your creative juices flowing, if you feel like you're burnt out, just try that experiment. Just have that experiment of you're a flame. You're a divine spark walking around. You're the one that's going to see in between the spaces and the moments. You're going to see life in a different way. You're going to see life in a way that others don't see, and how you articulate that, how you bring that to the table, that energetic print that is just yours is so important. But it's making nothing into something magical, into something only an artist can do, only a creative can do. How you think, how you hold yourself are all walking rituals if you want them to be, are all ways in which you can pull from life essence and put that into your work. I hope this I hope this helps. I've had many years where I was working a full-time job. I had two companies and I was freelancing. I was working 6 days a week and I was working 12 to 16, 18 hours a day for that time period. And it was just running, running, running. But I did take one day a week off and I just poured myself into spiritual text to keep my cup full. And I could do another week again. And then I'd take one day off and I would read text, I would watch videos, I would go outside and spend a lot of time in nature and just commune and just really cut out the world. Take a space because I knew I would have to go back into it. Take the space and the time to recalibrate and reconnect. I was still exhausted, but it was enough for me kind of to like, kind of felt like I was hanging by a thread. I don't recommend it to anybody, but there was this sense that it helped lift me back up to help reduce the burnout. And it's not about doing something just so you can go and create. If there is a sense of burnout or there's just this sense of disconnection, spend the time to replenish, but in a way that's very mindful and thoughtful, where you're replenishing that divine spark, because that divine spark is the spark of creativity. So that connection doesn't like to be made very well in professional settings where you're looking to do creative work and everyone has a deadline and a time frame and soul needs to rest. And they're like, that's great. Can I have it by Tuesday? Nobody cares. I care because I know what it's like and I know what creatives bring to the table and how much passion, how much enthusiasm, how connected they are to their work. There has to be a way that we can keep that flowing and not be a machine and allow ourselves the breath of life to experience it. So that goes right back into the work. It goes right back in. I hope this was helpful. I have links below on courses and mentorship if you'd like to work with me further and helping to get you back into this ignited spark of yours, this reigniting this spark, helping you stay fully connected and moving through things with ease. Thank you all for being here. I love you all, and I will see you next time. Take care.